So I have a question for you. How do you preach on gender dysphoria? If you don't know what gender dysphoria is, then your answer is I don't know. But maybe you're dealing with some pretty big complex issues in our world right now, like race or politics. We're recording this about a month before the 2016 presidential election. And so if you're watching this after the election, I'm assuming that it turned out okay and the world didn't fall apart. But when we talk about things that are complicated, that are important, but we may not be experts on as preachers, then how do we speak well? How do we help our people understand what God is saying and how we respond when it comes to things that maybe we're not experts about? So I remember a story in the life of our church where I can't even remember the text. I can't remember the exact point I was making, but I was making some medical illustration. And I was trying to make a point and trying to actually say more than I actually knew. It was stuff that I probably Googled or looked up on Wikipedia or something like that. And we have a nursing school in Athens, and we have nurses and nursing students in our church. And I can distinctly remember trying to make some point based on what I had studied and watching two nurses in our church sitting in different parts of our gathering, both kind of shaking their heads no, like, no, that what you're saying is not true. And so it goes back to a principle that I'm getting more and more comfortable with as a communicator and as a preacher, and that's this. Only talk about what you actually know. I understand historically why in a lot of communities the preacher was the person who is the smartest, most intelligent, the person who spent a lot of time learning and reading and thinking about how to work out not just a biblical text, but the implications of that text with some nuance and detail. But in the world that we live in now, there's so much accessibility to information, and there are people in your church who are experts. They're certainly more knowledgeable than you are about certain subjects. So here's the thing that I want to encourage you to do. I want to encourage you to do the hard work of having conversations with other people in your church, letting them help you, letting them serve as kind of a research team about an illustration or an idea. I want to encourage you that other people who have thought well and deeply, who have experienced life in certain areas that you haven't, allow them to either help you frame the right words to say what you need to say, or give them an opportunity within a sermon to be part of that message and to help them communicate either live or via video to be able to communicate something that's really, really true. And if you have people in your church or even outside of your church who can open up a Bible, who can preach exegetically, expositionally from the text and then make applications about these big, massive subjects that we have in our culture, about things like race, there is not a simple, easy solution to how we deal with a very clear picture of how God sees race working out in our world. There isn't a very simple, easy solution for how we think about matters of politics. There are so many subjects like gender dysphoria that, if truth be told, there's a lot that we just don't know. And so what we want to do is to be able to speak simply and clearly from the scriptures, and as we work out the implications beyond that, let's give ourselves permission to not feel like we have to be the experts, and let's adopt this principle that if we're going to speak, let's talk about what we know, and if we don't know something, let's either get help, find somebody from the outside who can help our people, or let's just be content to shut our mouths and be quiet and to either do more learning or just to trust that God's going to provide for his people in some other way. What we don't want to do is to speak out of turn and either turn people off in our congregation or say something that isn't going to be helpful. So know what you know and talk about that, and only talk about what you know.